All right, the next team I want to talk about is my hometown Chicago Bears. Now, I've explained a few times that I am not a Bears fan, and I don't have a favorite team. I'm not a fan of any team anymore because the Bears frustrated me so badly during the back half of the Jay Cutler era into the beginning of the Trubisky era. I just gave up. I got so frustrated that I realized like this team makes me more sad and mad than any other football. I just like watching football and scouting players. I'm going to do that. And then when I watch, I'm going to root for the guys that I like watching play, the guys that entertain me, and the guys that I think are good and deserve more credit. So I basically just root for my bets and my scouting. But I obviously love football. The Chicago Bears kicked off free agency today with the blockbuster signing of TJ Edwards. It's not really a blockbuster signing. Got a very cheap deal, only about 6.5 mil per, which is really good for a starting linebacker. And I don't think TJ Edwards is great. I think he's a B linebacker. He is a solid starter, average solid starter. Fine. Just fine. I don't think he changes much. I don't think that he's a game changer, an X factor. TJ Edwards prototype is that he's a coverage linebacker and he's not particularly athletic and he's kind of small. He is a Chicago boy, so we give him credit for that. We know he's tough. We know he likes his sausage, but that's about it. TJ Edwards' PFF metrics last year were really good with the Eagles, and I think that that's a little bit inflated. First of all, linebackers who play the middle and run a cover four scheme, PFF tends to give them really high grades because when you're playing cover four, the formation kind of looks like this. And because of that, you've got the linebacker going and covering all this space in the middle that's just not it's not possible, right? Like you got to be Urlacher in his prime, Fred Warner on a good day to actually lock down this area. It's way too much field. So I think that PFF just is a little gracious, saying, "Well, he didn't mess up, and he ran and he chased and he made the tackle. Good for you. He was in the area. That's his job." So it's such a hard task to accomplish that it's almost easy because as long as you don't totally fail, it's good. So TJ Edwards is a fine linebacker. He'll be okay. He's not running a cover four anymore in Chicago. He'll be running a cover two. Matt Eberflus runs that real vanilla nickel cover two scheme, and he'll be in coverage a lot. And I think that that's a solid signing. It's a B player at a position of need. I give it a B plus signing. Good stuff. Not going to change your team too much, but it plugs a hole with a player you don't need to worry about until his contract's up. That's great. I thought pairing him with Jack Sanborn, who I'm pretty high on and think he'll be an average starter as well. I think that just makes your linebackers decent, and linebackers aren't that important. So good on you. You're done there, right? Wrong. Wrong. They went and they blew their load on Trey Edmunds. Pause. We're keeping it in. They blew their load on Trey Edmunds. They spent way too much money on Tremaine Edmunds. Tremaine Edmunds is a little bit of a fishy case. If you haven't been paying attention, you might think this dude is sick. First of all, remember he was drafted when he was 19 years old out of Virginia Tech, and all anybody talked about in draft prep is like, well, yeah, he's not good yet, but he's real athletic and he's only 19. He's 19. So like in his first year, he'll be 20. And fast forward to today, all anybody's talking about is, he's already played in the league for 5 years and he's only 24. That's nice. His career might last a little longer, but as far as development goes, it's not about how old you are. It's about how long you've been doing the thing you're doing, right? Like, think about it. You were no better at breathing or arithmetic at 25 than you were at 24. You already mastered those things. You'd already done it for a long time. Trey Edmunds already played 3 years of college football and 5 years of NFL football. He's not getting better. Now, certainly his body won't be declining as quickly, but it's all about usage, and he's had plenty of time to learn everything he's going to learn about this game. He is a finished product, so throw the age out. But again, if you haven't been paying attention, first round pick, mega athletic, super young, right? And he's coming off of an awesome year per PFF, right? Not really. So if you look at Trey Edmunds' first 4 years in the league, PFF has him as historically bad in coverage. and not very good at stopping the run at all either. In fact, they have him as one of the very worst starting linebackers in the PFF era over his first 4 years. And if you watch the film, and if you watch his Virginia Tech film, that plays out. He's 6'4", very tall, and he's fairly fast. He should be good in space, right? Because he's a great athlete. No, he gets confused in space more than anybody I watch. Every time I watch the Bills, like I have a couple friends that I allow to watch football with me when I'm really zoning in. And it's a joke every time we watch the Bills and anything goes up the middle, I scream effing Trey Edmunds again. The guy takes really bad angles in pursuit, and he just gets generally confused when people are running behind him. He doesn't have, like, some guys have their eyes in the back of their head and they can just cover really instinctively, like a Bobby Wagner or like Eric Kendricks before his legs went. Trey Edmunds has the opposite of that. He's got a blindfold in the back of his head and sometimes on the sides of his head too. So he just takes really bad angles in the run game. He gets confused when he's got to cover in a lot of space, and running a cover two system, he's going to have to be in space a lot. The whole point is that he's going to be in space a lot. I'm not thrilled with that signing at all. I have Trey Edmunds as a B minus player, maybe a C plus, and I gave this signing a D because they gave him top of the line money. He's going to have a cap hit of about $15 million each year on average. It's a 4-year deal, but it's really only a 3-year deal. So they're paying like rookie quarterback money, like 5th-year option quarterback money, good wide receiver money to a linebacker who I don't think is average for a starter. Additionally, back to that PFF stuff, in his 5th year, and this is what people are seizing upon, he had an 88 coverage grade. That is elite. That is sick, especially for a linebacker. That is incredible, and it buoyed his PFF grade because his run defense, tackling, and blitzing, they're not good. He's not good at those areas of the game. So here's my issue. Low 30s, 1 year of 50, and now 88. How the hell does this happen? So let's look into actually which games he played. Like, which games did he play so well in that it made his grade astronomical? Well, I mean, if you look at this, I basically just went across every game that he played this year, what his overall PFF grade was, what his coverage grade was, and then which quarterback he was facing, right? So week 1, he played a good quarterback in Matt Stafford. Now, how good is he? Well, I don't know. The injuries certainly took their toll this year, but this is week 1. It's probably the best he's going to be. Let's give Trey Edmunds the benefit of the doubt. Let's call Matt Stafford a really good quarterback still, a starting good quarterback. And he had a solid coverage grade, 75. Now, evidently, he stunk everywhere else because his overall grade was bad, 66. That's an average player. 75 is a good coverage grade. That's like a B plus coverage grade. Tannehill and Tua, these are average grades. And Tannehill's a starting quarterback. Tua's a starting quarterback. Tannehill's okay. And Tua's kind of bad, but that's for a different story. This is not a Tua video. I've got plenty of those. You can go and check those out. So, again, these are very average, like B minus coverage grades. Against Lamar, starting quarterback, people have different opinions, but I think we can all agree Lamar's a starting quarterback. Terrible, terrible grade. Mahomes and Rodgers, okay coverage grades, pretty average. Mike White, backup quarterback, not a great backup quarterback. Nobody thinks Mike White is coming to steal Tua's job. Elite. Kirk Cousins, people have different opinions about Kirk Cousins. He's certainly a starting quarterback. Elite. So we've got 2 games that were very good coverage from Trey Edmunds, and they were against 2 good quarterbacks and then a backup quarterback in Mike White. Another good coverage game against Mac Jones, a bad quarterback who's on the verge of losing his job to Bailey Zappi. And then another good game against Skylar Thompson, a third-string quarterback on little notice. But then you look at the games he played terrible in. Lamar, Mike White again, Tua, Joe Burrow. He has just as many terrible games in coverage as he has good ones, and mostly he's just okay. I don't know how the hell they got 88 when he had an 88 or above coverage grade one time. I'm not here to question how PFF does their grading. I just know that if you look at this, it's not actually very impressive. So, like, if you go game by game, Trey Edmunds is not a good coverage linebacker. He's a fine coverage linebacker, and this is the best year by far. His PFF grade in coverage was about 3 times higher than it was like the year prior. The Bears also signed Nate Davis, a guard out of Tennessee, not the college, Tennessee Titans. He's going to be 27 by the start of the year. So he's got good age. He's not old. He's in his prime. That's fine. He's a mediocre guard. PFF had him ranked, and all 3 of the last 3 years, he was the 18th best guard, 25th best guard, 16th best guard. He's more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. As a pass blocker, he hasn't been very good at all. Just checking really quick. Last year was his best year as a pass blocker, and he had a 66.8 grade. The 3 years prior were 49, 52, 44. So, he's been a decent guard all told in basically every season he's started, but it's much more because he's a good run blocker than anything else. And this is a fine signing. Again, like offensive line, you want to build a decent group. You're not looking for studs, right? Like on the defensive line, it takes one game wrecker, a Khalil Mack a few years ago, Nick Bosa, keep coming back to him, Aaron Donald. It just takes one dude to just mess everything up and give you a good defensive line. Offensive line is the opposite way. With a good offensive line, you just need to have no holes, right? It's not about having any sharp points. It's about having no holes for sharp points to get through. You think of a defensive line as a sword and an offensive line as a shield. It doesn't matter if one part of your shield is really strong if there's a gaping hole in it, right? Because they're just going to stab right through that hole. That's how an offensive line works. So Nate Davis is fine. He plugs a hole. He'll play guard. What's interesting about this is, first of all, it signals that the Bears, they're looking to be a running team, which they kind of have to be with Justin Fields. He's not a polished passer. I think we can all agree. No matter who his offensive line or wide receivers are, that's not his game. He's a runner. And they're going to lean into that. They're going to run. They got a run blocking guard, right? Additionally, what does this mean for Cody Whitehair? Because he's currently their left guard, and he played fine again last season, similar caliber to Nate Davis, but he's older, and he's getting more expensive. Do they cut him because they can, or do they slide him over to center because he used to play center fairly well for the Bears? And if they slide him over to center, how does he look? Because if he plays at center the way he played at guard last year, all of a sudden this offensive line is like legit solid. It doesn't have any stars. There's no Trent Williams just demolishing dudes in the run game, but there's no liabilities left except maybe one at tackle that they could fill in the draft. So this signing, not great. I give it a C+. There were better guards out there, like, for instance, Shaq Mason, who the Buccaneers are about to cut, and you could probably get for only slightly more money. And money is certainly not an issue for the Bears right now. That said, it's a fine move. It plugs a hole. I'm not moved about it. I'm not angry that they didn't go get the best guard because I don't think you need to. And I'm not thrilled that they plugged a hole because they plugged a hole. It's basically a lateral move from last year that is getting a little younger.